importantly, Joe Biden, stumbling Joe, if you've been following, everybody else.
Did you tweet that?
Not yet. Everybody else has been making it seem that Joe Biden is just gaffing. I think anyone objectively who's not in the corporate media would agree this is more than gaffes. This is somebody who, I don't say this to mock him, I don't say this to be mean, I don't wish health problems on anybody, but this is somebody who obviously is not cognitively the way he used to be.
Yeah.
And journalists should just say that. I mean, it's very, very clear as you watch Joe Biden.
Look at us.
Very nice. Very nice. And we're both in black. Look at that.
Look at that. Ain't got real?
Journalists should say, these are not gaffes. Gaffes are when you say something like foot and mouth, things like that. Joe Biden is forgetting sentences. He's forgetting thoughts. He's forgetting cities. He's forgetting.
For sure.
And by the way, this is not unique to Joe Biden. Like at 76 years old, you would expect this in a lot of people. It doesn't have to be like it doesn't have to be a diagnosed thing. We're not doctors. I'm not diagnosing him as anything. Bernie Sanders obviously is around the same age. I'm not saying
Bernie Sanders running through the mall.
Right. I mean, Bernie Sanders, occasionally he'll have a moment, but it's not the equivalent of what you're seeing with Biden. So with that said, we don't know why Bernie Sanders has taken the lead in the most recent New Hampshire poll, not in second place. He's taken over in first place over Joe Biden. This is the first time Bernie or Warren or anyone
Call Biden at 456.
This is the first time anyone has taken #1 spot other than Biden in probably 2-3 months. In fairness, there's a national poll, so it shows momentum for Bernie Sanders. It's not that great for Elizabeth Warren, who in the last New Hampshire poll, I believe, was about tied with Bernie. So she has dropped in the New Hampshire poll by a few points. But I think what's important about this is a few things. Number one, again, I want to be honest. I want to be clear. I know people, don't like Joe Biden. I'm not a fan on policy, but we're not making light of like age-related issues.
Yeah.
But if the former vice president has moved from, I believe he was at 23% in New Hampshire down to 15.
Something to be said about that.
The things you're seeing on screen, the debate, they're not gaffes. The debate stumbles. The confusing, after the worst 2 mass shootings back to back in recent history, he's saying it happened in Houston and I believe Michigan when it happened in El Paso and Dayton.
It seemed like we're having another one.
Right. He's talking about, he was saying, what was the other day, the one where he...
Oh, he said the one about rich kids and black kids?
Right, that's not the one.
Okay,
no. He's talking about where, when he was vice president, the kids from Parkland came to the White House.
And he was out of the White House.
Right. I think he was...
I don't think people really got that. Do you think people got that?
Well, he was confusing Sandy Hook. And by the way, I don't know what he was talking about because, I mean, the kids in Sandy Hook died.
Yes. No, he's talking about Parkland. He was lying, or he was. I
don't think he's lying. I think he has spoken. I think he has spoken with the kids from Parkland, like out of since he has left the White House. But
you're right, because the only children that protested and went there was Parkland. Right. The other people were grown adults in Newtown.
Right.
They were adults. They were the parents of the people,
right,
of the children that died.
So bottom line, like, he's obviously mixing up dates, this and that. And again, I mean, this is just why I point out to the corporate reporters that they're not doing their job. It is one thing if you're just seeing this with your eye. Common sense would dictate this is not gaffes. But then you have to go along with it. I've covered 2 presidential campaigns. I've never seen a presidential candidate campaign this little in the last 4 months.
Yeah.
Yes, he's the former vice president, but there's a reason his campaign people are putting him out there so basically on an every other week basis. If you follow the trends of when Joe Biden campaigns, he goes for like a 3 or 4 day burst, and then he takes off for a week. And they're sending his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, on the road a lot. You would expect to see a candidate.
Really?
Yes. You would expect to see a candidate's wife campaigning a lot in the general election. I remember Jane Sanders was campaigning a lot towards the end of the primary, not in the beginning.
Yeah.
So, however way you
when they're losing.
However way you slice it, whether it's people are responding to what they're seeing during the debates and in these campaign speeches where he's stumbling all over the place, and that's why his polls are going down, or because, frankly, people are watching the debates, and if you watch that debate, I mean, Ty and I debated it, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders were, I think Bernie dominated. I think Warren did very well too. I guess it's eye of the beholder. I do. I said Bernie dominated in comparison to his first debate performance, which I think was kind of lifeless.
That's understandable.
But I think Warren, it was like 1A, whatever, however way you put it.
Yeah.
Maybe you thought Warren did better.
No, I thought it was equal, but I think what you're saying is like, you was like, he finally did it. It just made you more excited because your boy finally did it.
Right. But the point is, I think you're seeing Bernie take over in New Hampshire, I think, because of that debate performance. I also think, frankly, and I've said this for a while now, Bernie Sanders, the only thing I want him to borrow from Donald Trump, the only thing. I think Donald Trump, even though he does it in a very dangerous way, Donald Trump really struck a chord by going after the media.
Yeah.
I don't think Bernie Sanders should go after the media, calling them fake news and these things. There's a difference between calling someone fake news because basically you're trying to just knock down every single story about you. That's what Donald Trump does. That's propaganda. That's what authoritarian dictators do. They just scream fake news or the media is corrupt, this and that. That's dangerous. But Bernie Sanders and his campaign is finally standing up to the media, which people like. The media is loathed in America. I'm not talking about status quo.
No,
we're
we the SHIT.
We're pretty beloved. But the corporate media, I mean, all you got to do is watch for 2 hours straight on CNN. It ain't friendly to Bernie Sanders
at all. Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, and Ty was covering this yesterday. But when Bernie Sanders says, you know, Jeff Bezos and the Amazon Washington Post, he's not saying that Jeff Bezos is on the conference calls with the reporters telling them what to do.
Yeah.
It's built in. It's built into the cake. The Washington Post, the reporters there, I have traveled with some of them on the campaign trail, are the elites of the elites. They live in New York and D.C. They make very good money. They think Bernie is an old grumpy man. They have zero connection with Walmart workers. They have zero connection with progressive activists. They don't interview those people. I can tell you because I've traveled with them. I see what they do day to day.
Look at my IG tweet. I said that exact thing.
What they do, and by the way, we got 300 people watching, but only 200 of you have pressed the like button. So we need 100 more of you. Press that thumbs up button.
Get more people watching.
It's right under. But bottom line, this is one poll. Don't go out and get happy drunk. But hey, any candidate taking the lead over Biden, I look at the state polls more than I do the national polls. Yeah. In the state polls, Warren has done well in the national polls, but in the state polls, Bernie has either been in a solid number 2 or now number 1. Yeah. And I think the reason Bernie is rising, particularly in places like New Hampshire, is twofold. He's way more aggressive. In that CNN debate where he finally broke out, he called out CNN for the pharmaceutical talking points they were doing, which were followed by pharmaceutical ads.
They were so offended.
Right. I also think Bernie Sanders' campaign, if you notice what they're doing, which no other campaign is doing, Bernie Sanders' campaign basically has like a digital TV operation. I mean, if you follow Bernie Sanders' Twitter, if you follow his Facebook, if you follow, and this happened before the campaign. They started this where Bernie Sanders' campaign, Senate office was basically building out like, I guess you could say like now this style videos. And it's on his Twitter, it's on his Facebook, it's on his Instagram. Also, Bernie Sanders went on the Joe Rogan show, which is, I don't know how many subscribers, it's in the millions. 5 million subscribers, and I think the last time I checked, the interview had 8 to 10 million views.
Really?
Way more of it he's going to get on CNN or MSNBC. And by the way, these are.
And it's going to be a fair interview.
Right, but these aren't only like progressive people who watch Joe Rogan.
That's true.
He has people who aren't
on the right,
but he also has people that are apolitical and aren't like diehard politics because he interviews sporting figures, celebrities, this and that. So, and by the way, Rogan, you should have me on. We've reached out to you several times, but I digress. So start the hashtag.
Hashtag Rogan, bring us home, bro.
Status Rogan. Rogan.
Wait,
status Rogan.
No, it's Rogan coup.
Yeah, Rogan coup. So the bottom line is, and Bernie has a YouTube channel, great point, which is constantly updated. So I think Bernie Sanders, it's one poll, but if Bernie Sanders, why this New Hampshire poll is important, and this is what I told you before we went live, Bernie cannot win if he doesn't win New Hampshire. And hold me accountable if he loses New Hampshire. He has to win New Hampshire because it's possible he's not going to win Iowa. Iowa, to me right now, is a toss-up. So? I think it's a toss-up.
Elizabeth Warren?
No, I think it's either going to be Biden or Bernie in Iowa.
Oh, why do you see? This is the thing. Like,
but
CNN is talking as if Elizabeth has Iowa.
Because CNN has been propping up,
of course,
Elizabeth Warren for.
But I'm saying they didn't even mention Bernie. It was like Elizabeth has Bernie supporters.
CNN leaves out the fact the last Iowa poll, which showed Bernie at 9% in Iowa and had Elizabeth Warren, I think, at a strong second place. 62% of those polled were over the age of 50.
Landline.
62%.
Ain't nobody call my cell phone.
62% of those polled in that Iowa poll over the age of 50. CNN knows this, but of course they don't give the context. If 62% are over 50, I would expect Bernie not to do that well in that poll. Because Bernie's, I mean, he has older supporters,
he do.
But his strength is the younger, under 50 crowd.
Like Obama, when he ran into in 2008.
Right. So, bottom line, this is a very, very...
Bottom line?
This is the first time I've said bottom line. This is a very, very... now we have 6 officers have been shot in Philadelphia.
Oh, shoot.
That's off to our left. 6 officers shot in Philadelphia. This is a very encouraging thing. Now you have... not the 6 officers, the Bernie. Good correction.
Gotcha.
Bad 6 officers.
I'll be looking out.
So...
Look, they're doing a live...
Caption?
Caption.
You didn't put that on?
Hell nah. That's crazy. That's good.
I guess, yeah.
For people that can't hear.
Yeah, but somebody has to turn it on.
I don't even know if you could turn it on. I thought, because I've been seeing YouTube do it a lot. I've been seeing on a lot of videos, but I know it happened like on the live. Look at that. Ain't he real, y'all?
So the other thing I want to point out here, which I think is very, it's bad for America, but I think it's good for both Bernie and, frankly, Elizabeth Warren, to be honest. If you look at the stock market, if you look at the trends, a recession is coming, probably full-blown by the end of this year. Economists have been warning, dating back to the end of last year, that a recession is coming. If a recession comes, that is bad for the country, but it's good for the progressive argument that if we keep giving the keys to either extremist Republicans or middle-of-the-road, basically Republican-light Democrats, you're just going to keep getting these cyclical boom and bust things, because we get these boom and bust where there's a recession, then there's a near depression, then it's okay for a few years. Okay meaning okay for the elites. They say it's a booming economy, not for working people.
Not at all, because they don't what?
Right.
I don't beer. That's what?
Not the
that's
people.
Not my people.
Not the people we meet.
No, that's what they think though.
Right.
I don't know who they are. I step over them on the street.
Snorky 2K says it might be a full-blown recession by Friday. Well, good thing good thing my 401k is already done.
But look, tell me this: do you think it'll be like maybe what do they call that? A backfire, in the sense where they will think, oh, we have a recession, then we don't want to like give the keys then to a progressive that wants to have everything free. You know how people have the idea.
Well, that's the corporate line will go out. But I think most people, if there's a recession, you think most people are going to say, oh, let's go back to the way things were, which is the neoliberal order. No, they're gonna gravitate towards, whether it's Bernie and his Medicare for all, free public college, canceling student debt, Warren, the wealth tax. She has a plan to break up Amazon and these things. She has a plan for agricultural. She's got a lot of plans. My problem with Warren, you can have all the plans you want. If you don't have a movement behind you to apply pressure to both the extremist Republicans in charge of the Senate now, or the corporate Democrats, that they're not going to just like, hey, President Warren, let's just do what you want. No.
Yeah.
These are people that cling onto power. They don't want to give up their money. They don't want to give up their donors. And they don't want to give up their first-class seat on the Titanic. So to wrap this up, because I got to finish the business plan, promising that Bernie is number 1 one poll doesn't make a trend, but he's up 6 points over Biden. Warren is down 12 points. And by the way, as important it is for Bernie to win, as important as it is, I'm also on a steroid right now.
Is that what you call
making
it?
me drowsy?
Because if I would have said it, you'd be like, you're stupid.
Yeah. As important as it is for Bernie to win, Warren's got to do well in New Hampshire too. I mean, that's right next to Massachusetts. Yeah. If she doesn't do well in New Hampshire, then people start saying, well, if you can't do well in your backyard, how are you going to do well in South Carolina, other places? More importantly, if Bernie loses New Hampshire, the corporate media is going to declare him dead. If he wins Iowa, you know, he has a little bit more room to lose New Hampshire, but I personally think right now it's a toss-up in Iowa. I think the polls aren't actually reflective on who's going to win in Iowa. Hillary Clinton was far out ahead in Iowa, in all the polls, even close to the Iowa caucus in 2016, but it was basically a tie at the end. She won by 0.2 of a point. If you want to say she won, I'm not sure she won. So this is encouraging. The last thing I will say, you know that Bernie has momentum when the corporate media, who is already 24/7 against Bernie, ratchets it up. I mean, if you're following the Twitter Silver from 538, that, you know, fake wizard who is growing in worse and worse on predicting political outcomes. Nate Silver, he's the pollster that.
For who? CNN?
No, he has his own company.
Oh. He
He's
don't poll on Twitter. Oh, it's the guy at the company that people hire. It's a third party?
Maybe pay attention to politics and study up a little bit.
I got gas.
Oh, great. Nate Silver has been attacking Bernie on Twitter for the last few days. Then you had the New York Times did a story basically saying Bernie didn't talk to anyone at the Iowa State Fair. However, he had the largest crowd. I think him and Warren basically
had the largest crowd. They said that?
Yeah, they had a picture. Bernie doesn't talk to anyone in Iowa State Fair. He doesn't do any like retail politicking or anything like that. Yet he had the biggest crowd. Basically, it was like Warren and Bernie.
So did they like follow him throughout the entire...
Right. So basically the media, when Bernie has momentum, they kind of increase the pressure as far as making it seem that, you know, Bernie isn't resonating, he's lost his mojo, Warren is taking the lead. And then, incredibly, the Washington Post, who literally wrote 16 negative stories about Bernie Sanders.
In 16
you were
hours.
Right. It was in 16
hours.
hours.
I was right?
You were right.
Because he loved to try to correct
It was in
me.
16 hours, not 24 hours. The Washington Post, who Jennifer Rubin for the Washington Post, I clocked it, wrote 3 columns in 1 week negative against Bernie Sanders. You have literally every week in the Washington Post, story after story after story after story going out negative about Bernie Sanders. Has nothing to do with the fact that their owner, Jeff Bezos, was shamed, embarrassed, dragged through the social media streets.
And like I said yesterday, though, even if that's not the case, who wouldn't think that is the case? Like if after I put you on blast in front of everybody, you fold for a good reason, and then all of a sudden I get 16 stories, any rational person would say, oh, that's Jeff Bezos. Even if it's not. You would think that, and it's very rational to think if you got 16 stories in 16 hours, they don't even have that much time.
Before I go, I just want to make sure you know that the audience is very interested in reading your armpit. I guess they're trying to read your tattoo or something.
I'm doing like this because my shoulders hurt.
Oh, so people are trying to read.
Okay, but my shoulders hurting. So,
I'm not mocking.
Oh, you're not mocking?
No, I'm telling you, people want to read it.
So this is actually a verse from Tupac and Malcolm X quote at the end. It's the verse is from White Man's World, the second verse in White Man's World, Tupac, and then this is the quote from Malcolm X saying, moderation is not a virtue, and extremism is not a vice. Something like that. I forgot about it.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.